everyone, John Henry here, slingshotfutures.com, and welcome to the daily futures market outlook for trading on the 22nd, going into tomorrow's price action. So we put together a trading plan for tomorrow's price action on the big six markets that we trade, and that goes over the bond, gold, the bonds, as well as crude oil, the NASDAQ, and the S&P 500. Now, generally, the main idea after a day like today, which if you weren't trading today, man, you missed a lot of movement today. If you can't tell by the charts, the markets woke up a little bit. Fingers crossed we see more of this kind of movement going into spring. But before we dive into the charts, as always, make sure to swing on over to the website, scroll down into slingshotfutures.com, and click on the Join the Daily Outlook newsletter, and that will sign you up for our email list so we can email you every single time one of these comes out. And we also talk about different statistics, different stocks, and different things to keep an eye on as well. Along with that, at the bottom of the page, we have market psychology that we do every day. We talk about one specific market and talk about what happened that day and try to break down the psychology behind those moves. And then along with that as well, we also have the live trader morning prep levels for all of the major levels of support and resistance. If you haven't tried us out yet, make sure to swing on over to the live trade room subscription and trial info. You can take a one-day trial, and if you really like it, you can obviously sign up for a subscription to the live trade room. And if you want to go even further than that, you also have VIP membership, which has the lifetime access to the live trade room built into it. So looking at the overall movement, we have the bund, which had a full reversal, right? We had that overall movement to the downside. They tried putting in a double top and they couldn't break through it, right? Big failure back down and good amount of bearishness lower. And we've seen this very frequently lately on the bund where they get a move down, they find a near double bottom or kind of an ugly looking double bottom, and then it reverses back through the opposite side. The same thing happened yesterday. They put in a move down, put in a double bottom, and nearly reversed all the way through the highs. If we go back a little further, they tried to go lower and they couldn't even get the double bottom and reverse through the highs. It seems to be a very common trend right now for the bund, and today was no exception. They had to grind down, put in a double bottom with a quick little twin reversal bottom, and reversed all the way back through a new high. So with that overall momentum to the upside, we have a wedge forming, and the wedge itself, drawn off of the lows, we can see they're challenging it a little bit, and it does look okay, right? It could look better, could look worse, but chances are we're probably going to get another anchor point to kind of drop that low on. So right now, this looks the best, but we may just have to deal with something like this until we get a little more information. Now, the overall drive, obviously buyers at the moment own the market, but the last few days, what we've seen is it'll have that reversal and then it will gap the opposite direction. It'll have that big reversal and then we open up the next day and it goes down. So given this overall momentum, I would assume that we may just go into a slight bear mode in the overnight session and try to take some of this back. If that is the case, then I'm looking for a bullish bounce around 159.51 to buy into that dip, as low as down to 159.48, but I wouldn't want to see it go much further than that to try to buy on up. Now, given the overall support and the obviousness of the buyers not really letting the sellers get anything going, we do have an area of resistance at 159.69, but if we can start breaking through that, the buyers may not come back. Very strong bull little bounce right there, and that may be all she wrote. Depends on what the overnight session holds for us, but the buyers in control and looking to buy aggressively now, otherwise waiting for a better price. And we're looking for the upside objective target at 159.86 to fill that gap from the prior day. Switching gears over to gold. Gold had quite the move higher. Very bullish momentum to the upside today on gold, and that kind of went even more aggressive, right? We were looking pretty nice and bullish, steady, broke out, and then continued higher. And very frequently, that's not the type of scenario you expect to see. Now, obviously today, given all of the markets, it's not a normal day, but that's not generally what you see. You normally see it break higher, that ends the move, and it comes back. So because we've had that continuation of the move, the buyers are very obviously interested in this. Now, they may not be interested at the highs anymore, given the amount of pullback. So what I would be looking for is a pullback into support. Right now, 1243.1 or 42.1, or even better, if we can get a dip down to 39.8 to 39.3, then I would be looking to become a buyer again for another attempt at those highs. Where we are right now may be okay, depending on what happens for the bullish move up. But either way, all things considered, the buyers own this market, nobody else. So I'm looking to buy a pullback and preferably at a better price, but they might not give you that option before they make that rally up to a new high. Over on the Ultra Bonds, we have a really nice move higher, just a complete breakout of the morning movement. And you can see it just became completely detached. We had a little bit of a grind lower, not really much going on, and then all of a sudden, wham, that thing just did not stop going up. Now, the overall momentum to the upside, very strong, right? This is a big smash higher into a spike and a channel, and the channel fits almost perfectly. It's hard to get a better fit to a channel than that right there. So considering the amount of bullishness that's in the market, we are definitely looking to be buyers. Given where we are right now, do I really want to buy right this second near the highs by a couple ticks? Probably not, right? We do have some unfinished business up at 160.07 is where we're looking for the buyers to primarily target, and a lot of profit taking likely there. But I still have a really hard time being a buyer way up here. I want to buy a pullback, right? We want to buy at a little bit of a better price. And right now, that would be down at either 159.19 or a really good pullback down to 159.12. Either way, though, going to be really tough to be a buyer up here near this high. It is very probable that they break out through the high and finish that objective sooner than later. But if we do get a pullback, I wouldn't mind at all buying at those dips. Over on crude oil, opposite side of things, crude oil nice and bearish, working its way lower, and quite explosive at that. Big drop lower into a spike and channel. They tried to break out of that with a nice bullish rally here, and that bull rally, generally speaking, is likely going to go up to around 48.50. The prior low of day is at 48.46, where I'm anticipating finding resistance for another attempt at the lows. So what I would like to see here, obviously, I want to be a seller, but I want to see the move up into this area. 48.50 is the sell zone, looking for a drop back down into a target area. Now, in terms of the target area lows, I'm not looking for a new low. It may go down and double bottom, maybe poke its head through there a little bit, but overall, I'm looking for 48.06 instead of a new low, just to kind of get out ahead of it, and maybe even a little bit higher at 48.10. If you see it stalling at 48.10 and your target's at 06, I'm not going to argue over 4 ticks if you're up 60. Good enough, right? So the mentality that I'm having right now is the sellers obviously want this. We are nice and bearish, but we may be a little too far down, and the buyers are still showing possible correction. So let them correct into the spike and channel. Generally, that correction leads into where the channel started, which is around that 48.50 area. Look to sell that right back down to a new low. Just as an interesting level that may come into play tomorrow, depending on what happens, this line in the sand coming across the highs, right? Drawn off the top into the next one, into the next one. They're holding all the way down, and they're holding to the tick. So this level going into tomorrow's price action could be a very interesting level, depending on if we do get that bull rallied a little bit further, or maybe we just stagnate here until we hit that level. Either way, though, I definitely want to be keeping an eye on that as well. And then we get into the fun stuff, the NASDAQ and the S&P. Man, oh man, these things exploded to the downside, completely shattering any upward momentum that they had, right? Just getting rid of today's price action to the downside, it looked like it was going to be a very bullish day. We started off good bullish movement, and then things started taking a little bit of a turn for the worse. Maybe they're going to hold it. Nope, nope, nope. And they just continued to slam down. Now, this slam lower has an open objective below at 53.18 and a quarter, and that is the major sell side target that sellers will be looking for. Obviously, after such a big move down, we're talking, from the top to the bottom, we're talking 111 points, right? So not a small move by any means. And with such a big drive down, sellers are taking profit. Do you blame them? Not really, right? It kind of makes sense. We may be forming a little bit of a wedge bottom, but overall, the sellers still have objectives down at 18 and a quarter before I start looking for the sellers to subside. What I would really like to see is a correction at some point, whether it's above the most recent swing area at around 53, 58 and a quarter, or better yet, all the way up to 53, 76 and 3/4. I would love to sell those areas for that continuation down to finish off the objective to 18 and a quarter. We're bearish, right? We've in one day we've switched gears. Now tomorrow, and we've seen this before, we may get a complete V and it goes back the opposite direction. But right now, the sellers own the market, and I have no other plans but to be a seller along with them. And the same goes for the S&P. Massive drive lower from the top to the bottom, which was just put in not too long ago, 40.5 points to the downside. So again, a very bearish day on all of the indices. Looking at the possibility of a wedge bottom here, and they also have bearish objectives at 23, 33 and 3/4. That is the major objective for sellers to push down to. And if they can reach it, I'm looking for a ton of profit taking around that 33 and 3/4 area. We're getting stuck right now at prior month levels. the open and the close, kind of stacked on top of each other, and last month obviously not being very strong, we're having a little bit of trouble here, especially considering that we are going in towards the end of the month. It's not the last week of the month, which is when you generally really see some good response off of the monthly levels, but we are getting close. So not a big surprise to see a little bit of chop and slop around those monthly levels, but with the open target below still at 23.33 3/4, looking for the sellers to want to continue this drive, preferably entering in at better prices. Obvious level of support and resistance at 48 3/4. Would love to be a seller there. All the way up to 54 3/4 to 56 1/4. Looking to sell on a pullback to drive the market back down and finish that objective. Again, given how bearish the moves are on the NASDAQ and the S&P, they may not give you an option but to get in sooner than later. But if they do give you a correction, those would be the areas that I would like to jump in at. So that's going to do it for the outlook today. Looking at the news for tomorrow, even though we didn't have any news today, it didn't seem to matter. Tomorrow, we actually do have some news. So who knows, right? Maybe tomorrow's just going to be a completely dead day. Now, given the fact that tomorrow does have existing home sales coming out at 10 o'clock, forecasted at 5.57 million, previous was 5.69 million. And tomorrow is crude oil inventories. Crude can obviously be a little bit funky around there, and you can actually see the API report just came out, causing a little bit of fluctuation here as well. Now, the nice thing about the API report, it generally tends to be a little bit more accurate. So the API versus the forecast for tomorrow. The forecast for tomorrow on inventories is 2.801 million. Right? Now, if we look at today's API report, that may give you a little bit of a better clue in terms of what to expect for tomorrow. I haven't seen the numbers show up yet, but keep an eye on those because it could give you a little bit of a clue in what to expect for tomorrow's price action. So that's going to do it for this one. Like we always say, make a plan, trade that plan, follow the rules, and we will see you next time.